Commission invites the comments at the public hearing of its interested citizens of matters before it and welcomes your presence. Madam Chairwoman, I move that we adopt the agenda before us.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Would you please, Commissioner Williams, lead us in the invocation?
Yes. To the Creator, we humbly ask you right now just to be invited into this space as we collectively do the work that we have asked and decided to serve to do for our citizens here in Newport News. We ask for your wisdom and we ask for your peace as we deliberate on matters germane to the city of Newport News. And we thank you for this opportunity to serve. May everything be done in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Grabowski, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Now, our minutes are included here with our agenda package, and I hope that everyone had an opportunity to review them, and if there are any changes, please make them now. If there are no changes or modifications, the minutes stand as presented. Now we're going to move into our public hearing, and our first public hearing is going to be a special exception -2023-0004, the Warwick Shopping Center and Autobell Car Wash, presented by Celeste Lodion.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Afternoon. So yes, this application is for SE 2023-0004, Warwick Shopping Center INC, Autobell Car Wash LLC, and it's a request for the enlargement of a legally non-conforming car wash. You'll see on the next slide, that's the property as it is today, and it's 10710 Warwick Boulevard, and it's 1.061 acres. And this is an aerial map showing the surrounding area, and the property is outlined in yellow. So to the north, we have vacant property in Warwick Shopping Center. To the south is Sunoco Gas Station and single-family homes. Then to the east is former Camp Morrison Industrial Warehouses and ABC Supply Company. To the west is single-family homes and Hilton Christian Church. And this is a map of the zoning designations in the area. The property is in the middle there with the black and white stripes, and it's been zoned C2 General Commercial since the citywide comprehensive rezoning became effective August 1, 1997. So I'm just going to give you a little history of the regulatory requirements for the use. The Autobell was constructed in 2003 when car washes were permitted by right in the C2 General Commercial District. And then in January 10, 2006, there was a zoning text amendment that was passed, and now it requires that all automotive uses obtain approval of a conditional use permit. So therefore, the current car wash is legally non-conforming. There was a zoning violation that occurred when the vacuum structures were put on the site without zoning approval. So this special exception is going to mitigate that violation and then allow for the enlargement of the non-conforming use. So the proposal is to enlarge a legally non-conforming car wash. All right, so now I want to go through the special exception criteria and explain how each of the criteria will be met. First, all yards, height, and other applicable dimensional regulations of the district in which the use is located shall be observed. Currently, the layout isn't meeting some of the setbacks. There's a special front yard setback from the center line of the Warwick Boulevard roadway, and there's a 12-foot rear and 5-foot side yard setback. And the revised layout meets all of the required setbacks. Second, the enlargement of the Audubon Car Wash will meet the regulations of the most restrictive district in which the use is permitted. As I mentioned, it's not permitted by right in any zoning district, but it's permitted by conditional use permit approval in the C2 General Commercial District. And then also, as mentioned, there were vacuum structures that were added to the site, and this constitutes an enlargement of the use. So the vacuum structure additions will meet the regulations of the most restrictive district. All right, and I think I might have forgot to go through the slide there, but third, any enlargement shall be limited to the same premises on which the use existed at the time it became non-conforming. So the majority of the vacuum structures are going to be moved to the side of the car wash, and there'll be 4 that remain in the front of the parcel. And this adjustment will meet the required setbacks, and it will also ensure that the vacuums remain within the limits of the previously leased parcel when the use became non-conforming. Fourth, the expansion of the use will not create a new use or occupy more than 100% additional land area or floor space. And then finally, the enlargement will be in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood and in the general welfare of the public. So again, the row of vacuums in the entrance lane closest to Warwick Boulevard is going to be moved to the side of the car wash, and this will allow cars to enter safely. 4 vacuums will remain along the front of the property, and then there's going to be an opaque fence that is added in front of the in front of the vacuum producers, and that will allow it to not be visible from Warwick Boulevard. And this will make it in harmony with the neighborhood. So in conclusion, the proposed enlargement of the legally non-conforming car wash and reconfiguration of vacuums meets all applicable criteria stipulated in the zoning ordinance. And staff recommends that Planning Commission recommends approval of SE 2023-0004 for the enlargement of a legally non-conforming car wash with the following conditions. So the following is going to be submitted to the Department of Planning: revised site plan, a revised landscape plan, and then an opaque fence that includes materials and colors to screen the vacuum producers, as well as all other standard conditions. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sorry I didn't go through that.
Where's the fence on this, on the second view?
Okay, so if you go to the site, it's kind of hard to see. It's a little small. But it's right on the other side of the vacuum structures. There's the vacuum producer, and that's going to be in front of the vacuum producers, so you can't see it from Warwick Boulevard.
And this car wash never had vacuums?
They did. I believe they were in the back of the building, in a structure there in the back.
They actually did not have a structure. They were just,
Okay.
vacuum and
Sorry.
come in.
I thought they did have vacuums, yeah.
They didn't have a station. So basically, you're eliminating that one station that's moving over to the side, and then you're still keeping the one that's along the far base.
There's
but-
4 there, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 3 in front that are being moved, and then along the side. Anything else?
When you suggest an opaque style fence, can you speak to that a little bit more in terms of what it's expected to look like?
So an opaque fence is just to screen off the large vacuum, they're called vacuum producers, but essentially it's where the vacuums receive power and then collect all the trash so that it's not seen by people driving down Warwick Boulevard. It's a pretty big structure right now. But the fence would be about 6 feet tall, you know, depends on what is submitted, but it could be a board-on-board fence, it could be a vinyl fence that's solid in nature to screen that vacuum producer, for lack of a better way of stating it.
So, what is okay?
How,
Yeah, go ahead.
how wide is that drive aisle where, you know, you're gonna have this fence in the middle and then you're gonna have.
It's not in the middle. The fence, if you look,
Yeah, and it's not dead center in the middle, but, so
No,
you're creating two
it's-
drive aisles now?
it's not a fence. That dark line that's down the center is
Right.
just a
That's a
two-way,
stop
it's basically showing the two-way traffic.
Right?
Where the fence is, if you look to the, let's see, I'm trying to find a north arrow on this thing, to the right of that car that's along the station,
Right?
you see something labeled proposed vacuum producers. And then if you look above that, it says 6-foot-high opaque fence. That fence will go around that metal structure that's there.
Oh,
That makes more sense.
So in theory, you wouldn't be able to see the vacuum
it's
that all
not-
on Ward?
It's not that black
see
line
the
in the
vacuum.
middle.
no, it's
I
not.
thought that's,
Right.
never mind.
Yep, no, I'm saying.
Okay. It's just around the vacuum.
Right, so they just be nozzles sticking out, I guess.
And we're not losing any landscaping or anything with this. Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Celeste.
You're welcome.
I do have a card here from attorney, or Tim Trant, the applicant. If you would like to come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. It's my privilege to be here on behalf of Audubell. My name is Tim Trant, attorney with Kaufman and Knowles, 11815 Fountain Way, here in the city of Newport News. Also with me today is Jonathan Thomas and Thomas Muzzoni, both of Audubell, and hopefully between the three of us, we can address any questions or concerns you may have. Kimley Horn is our engineer of record, has helped us with the surveying and the conceptual site plan as well. And of course, the shopping center owner is the Suttle family, who's represented by Ray Suttle. I think you all may have received a letter of support from him. He's been very helpful in working through this. I will endeavor not to be redundant of anything Celeste has shown you or told you, so I'll skip through these slides, just note them in case you need to go back to them, want to see them. There's some aerials, some street views, the site plan itself, and then I thought it was important just to share with you the reason for the change. First of all, we want to be very candid that we acknowledge this is a quote, forgiveness special exception. Audubell was not aware when they sought to relocate their vacuum stations from the rear, and I'll explain why that was changed and what all happened there, that they had become a lawfully non-conforming use and that it required a special exception. And you know, shame on us, ignorance is no excuse, but they did not know that. They saw a business need, sent their contractors out to make the change, and it was only after the staff pointed out that that was not permitted, that we were now a lawfully non-conforming use and we need to go through this process. And Audubell, you know, and I know I'm biased, but they have really jumped on trying to fix it and do it right and get responsive to the feedback from staff. So in any event, just want to acknowledge that. The reason for the change is worth noting. It's a safety issue. There's really nothing more than that. It wasn't a business objective or a business interest. I guess they're indirect business interests, but it was principally safety. The evolution of the technology in automobile, and well, let me back up. I'm a customer, so I have firsthand experience of how the Audubell works, and many of you probably do too. But how it used to work is you would drive your car up to the rear of the tunnel, as it's called. A worker would greet you, decide what service you wanted, what wash you wanted, and then you would get out of the car. And they would then vacuum out your car before it entered the tunnel, and they would take your car through the tunnel, typically go through unmanned. They'd pick it up on the backside, drive it to the finishing area where they do kind of a hand finish, which is what there are other car washes out there doing, but it has been unique to Audubell in the past, and you know, provided that extra quality to their service. Anyway, with the evolution of technology, it is just not safe for the employees to operate the vehicles. You know, keyless fobs now that start in cars, and just the technology, just too many issues with, you know, the employees not knowing how to operate the car, these new vehicles, or being able to operate them at points when it was kind of critical to have an operator. So the decision was made, and this is company-wide, to shift the style of operation to no longer having the customer leave their vehicle before the car wash. They stay in their vehicle now. There's no vacuuming around the customer while they're sitting in their car. The idea is to have the customer remain in the vehicle through the tunnel, through the wash, be directed by an employee as they exit the wash, the tunnel, to a finishing station, where then the customer exits the vehicle and the finishing happens and the vacuuming happens. So that the reason was just safety, just too many incidences and concerns with employees operating these very sophisticated and unfamiliar vehicles. So that was the purpose for the change, and that's why we've come to ask for this special exception. And I'll be quiet and answer any questions that you may have.
Yes.
Either for you or for someone with Auto Bell, so where now is the waiting station for cars to be finished? Because according to this, it looks like those parking spaces are gone.
Yeah, so cars would still be finished in by the vacuum stanchion. So there's the same number of finishing stations still exist. There's just before, as you may remember if you were there, seeing your head nodding earlier, it sounds like you've been there too. There was just a cart with materials and an employee in kind of a designated parking space. Now there's a vacuum stanchion and a, you know, kind of a more stripe-defined parking space. So that's where the car will be parked. The customers will exit the vehicle, and they can wait in the little outdoor courtyard that you know exists, or depending on the weather, inside in the little waiting area inside. So the process of the customer receiving their vehicle is still the same. You know, that when the employee's done with the finishing at that vacuum stanchion, that he or she will come over, you know, call for the customer, hey, who's driving the, you know, the blue Ford Explorer or whatever, and then they'll get their keys, they'll come inspect their vehicle, and then they will drive away from that vacuum stanchion, from that finishing station.
Okay. But just again, because I know the vacuum's now being moved from the front, where you have parking spaces for cars that's waiting to be finished. Now they're moving into those spaces, it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly.
No, well, the way it is configured now, yes, there were vehicle, the way it is currently configured, the vacuum stanchions, all of them, and all of the finishing stations are in that front drive aisle, sort of north of the tunnel, you know, above the tunnel, closer to the shopping center proper. There will still be, I believe, 2 or 3 of those vacuum stanchion parking spaces on the right side, closest to the curb line and closest to the shopping center, that will remain. The other drive aisle that's currently a parking, you know, a finishing area, that will be cleared to be a flow-through drive aisle.
Okay.
So I have a question. So these round circles, those are the vacuuming stanchions, as you call it. Those are the silver things out there.
Yes, ma'am.
So does each one of those, can a car go to each one of those? See, there's 4 in the front, and then they get a little smaller on the other side. Looks like there's 8 on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Can a car?
Yeah, so I believe in Thomas,
So would
correct.
you have 4 cars parked, because you have another side of the road, on the other side? Can they pull up on the other side too?
Yeah, so my understanding is the way they work, there's a vacuum on both sides for each side of the vehicle. So you're not crossing over so it's one
All
car,
right.
it's 2 stanchions servicing one finishing area.
So you have-
So you're not dragging the hose
So you could have
over the
2
car.
cars in the front. it looks
That's
like.
correct, yes,
And
ma'am.
then on the other side, you could have 1, 2, 3, I guess.
Yeah, looks
Well, I guess
like
you
you'd
could
be
do-
able to have
you could do both, 'cause you
a
could-
total of 6 on the
Yeah, on the back
side, yes.
6.
But
Correct.
Based on this drawing, you get at least 6 cars.
Yeah. Okay. So you could have 2 in the front, 6 in the back.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
So
okay.
essentially how it works is the stations, you vacuum, the car goes in between the stations.
Right.
So you can vacuum on either side.
Right, okay,
So that is correct.
all right. So you won't have any on the Warwick Boulevard side of those, stacking up on that side too?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And
Now,
so,
I understand what you mean with the new cars. My car got stuck at the entrance because it has auto hold. And
right.
it wouldn't go
Go through
forward.
because it saw the obstruction. Yeah, right. It's a perfect example of
Yeah.
what was happening daily out.
and the vacuum producers, that's the only one that will be there that works, that drives the other ones? I don't, that's.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's correct.
Why can't that be over on the side? Is that where it's currently located?
I think that's where it's currently
Okay.
located.
All right.
If it's, you know, we would just ask to
Just screen
save
it.
the cost
Yeah,
if
and
we
just
could
screen
just
it.
screen it. And
I understand.
I talked to Thomas and Jonathan, and they're willing to, through the site plan process, work with staff on the style of fencing, you know, that best
Landscaping.
that just achieves the right aesthetic. They're not committed to one or the other, just what is attractive, but, you know, durable. Obviously, it won't have to replace it every year.
So
but
there'll be a fence but no landscaping around it, just a fence?
I think that's correct. Yes, ma'am.
I got a quick question,
Yes, sir.
and I apologize because I have not used this auto bell. I live up in the Denver area, so I come by it quite often, but haven't used it. But are we increasing the flow of traffic out on Hunter, or is that normal?
There's currently an entrance and exit there.
Okay. Today they use
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's check.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you for your time.
I have no other cards, so I will close the public hearing. Matters before the commissioners.
Chairman, Madam Chairman, sorry. There was a letter of support
Yeah, read it.
Okay,
that will be entered into the record. You don't have to read it.
yes. I will read this letter of support into the record. Dear Commissioners, on behalf of the landlord, I write this letter of support in connection with the above referenced special exception application, and that is special exception application SE-2023-0004. Auto Bell has been an excellent tenant and corporate citizen. The modifications being requested by Auto Bell will be consistent with and complement the property. I would ask that you give this application a favorable recommendation to City Council. I appreciate your cooperation in this regard. Very truly yours, Raymond H. Suttle, Jr.
Thank you.
Yes. So, now, matters before the commission.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move that special exception number SE-2023-0004 be approved with conditions as recommended by staff.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. Did you hear which one was first? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second, so do we have any discussion? Not, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Dias?
4.
Commissioner Shook?
4.
Commissioner Williams?
4.
Commissioner Taylor?
4.
Commissioner Bowditch?
4.
Commissioner Stodgel?
4.
Commissioner Gabowski?
4.
Commissioner Fox?
4.
Motion unanimous, 8-0.
Okay, this will be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals on June the 20th, 2023. Thank you. Now we have our Executive Secretary report. Sheila?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
City Council on April the 25th approved the 2 conditional use permits that were before them They're literally across the street on Jefferson Avenue. One was at 13130 Jefferson Avenue, and the other was at 13101 Jefferson Avenue. And on May 16th, the Board of Zoning Appeals approved the special exceptions to allow development on lots with less than 50 feet of frontage, and also a special exception to increase the number of parking for caliper collision. Okay. And of course, we have several conditional use permits and a rezoning coming up on June the 7th. And I'd also like to introduce to you our newest planner. He's in our Comprehensive Planning Division. His name is Eli Yokley Sharka. He has a bachelor's degree in urban planning and policy from Virginia Tech. And he started just a week ago. He's right here if you can't see him.
Hi there.
And we're
Welcome.
also, I don't think she's here, but we're losing our landscape planner,
Yeah.
Sharon Baum. She was commuting from Richmond for 2 years, but she has been wonderful to work with, and she's done some beautiful things since she's been here. We're going to miss her, but she's going back to Richmond to work because, you know, the commute after a while kind of wears on you. So she will be missed. That's all I have.
Yes.
Am I mistaken? Didn't we say Lee Hall was going to be voted on?
Not yet. It's going to council next week.
The
Next
other
week,
one was
next week,
expedited.
okay.
I would say.
So yes, you want to say.
Do we have any unfinished business?
Yeah, committee, skip committee reports.
Oh, I did. Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for.
I know I was wrong, right?
Okay.
Both of us.
2 for 2 now.
All right, committee reports.
Well, we had a regulations committee meeting today. We voted on the downtown parking, and it basically was in regards to the off-street parking and loading regulations. We voted on the rewrite of that section. We also discussed and voted on the cannabis dispensing facility and the definition of what that means. For those that don't know, it's coming before you soon, so you get a chance to read exactly how the state has defined it and how we define it. So that's coming and being voted on. And we spoke about and discussed an amendment to our definition for group homes. And so we had a very, very good meeting. And we also lost a member of the regulations committee. And her name just slipped my mind. Miss Swanson.
Oh, Claire's going on.
Yeah, she's closing. She's moving on to bigger and better things.
Wow.
So we're gonna miss her also. So thank you, Claire, for all your support and all the work she's done over the years. That's it for regulations, anyway.
Okay, any new business? Okay, I'd like to remind everyone, we now have the pleasure of attending a work session, and we will be traveling upstairs to the 8th floor?
6th floor.
6th floor for our work session. And so this part of our day is adjourned.
Thank you.